Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. This time back again with another of my good old fashioned comic book hauls. Mostly Bronze Age stuff again, I think. Yeah. And maybe with a few exceptions. And as always, it's just filling out runs, following little threads of interesting bits of comic book history for me, and just following my whims. Stuff I hope to read someday. I know I'm picking up too much stuff. I've gone crazy during COVID, and I'm slowly catching up in terms of putting things on video that I've been picking up from local stores and from online sources. Most often online, it's been mycomicshop.com. But not always. Can't remember the name of it. There's another place I've been ordering from recently. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. So anyway, for whatever reason, I am fascinated by the concept of the son of Satan. Probably my Catholic upbringing that made me kind of hell obsessed, just in terms of how it played upon my imagination. And then on top of it, this character's first name is Damien or Damon or Damien. I can't remember how they spell it. Damon Hellstrom or Damien Hellstrom, very close to my name. This issue is written by Steve Gerber, and we've got art by Jim Mooney, and I'm kind of a closet Jim Mooney fan at times. It looks fun. So, yeah. Speaking of young Catholic boy fascination with hell, when we used to have fires in the fireplace, I used to stare into the flames and imagine in those flames I could see the suffering souls in hell. Not that I think these comics get into that, but do they give his name? No, they don't yet have the thing at the top where they give you the Daimon Hellstrom. Damon Hellstrom, something like that. I always thought of him as Damien Hellstrom. So that's issue number 15. I've got a bunch of them from Marvel Spotlight. I don't know if Son of Satan ever had his own comic, at least not till the 90s when they did a comic called Hellstrom or Hellstrom. But I might be wrong. But I think he was just in Marvel Spotlight. Here's Marvel Spotlight number 16. John Romita cover. I think 15 was probably a John Romita cover also. Let's see. I love looking on the inside, so that's how I waste time on these videos, rather than, same artistic team. Kind of a interesting splash page there. 4,000 holes in Forest Park. Always something a little off, a little different from good old Steve Gerber. Look, I should have checked as soon as I got in the store. This does have its Marvel value stamp, Dragon Man. So that's cool. Worst World in Crazy Magazine. Just catches my attention. Let's see. The next issue I've got, is 17. And it also looks to me like a John Romita cover. Sometimes it's John Romita inking over someone else's pencils, but his inking style is pretty distinctive. I'd have to look all these up on Mike's Amazing World of Comics, which I probably will eventually. Still the same team. Not as unusual a splash page, but still kind of striking. And we've got the Marvel value stamp. That's nice. I used to be so much happier as a kid if there were 2 pages of letters page. I don't know why. I don't know why that was important to me, but it felt like I was really getting my money's worth then. I'm glancing at the names of the letter writers, none that I recognize. And then we skip ahead to number 20. I may have the others in between ones elsewhere in my collection. I don't recall, but I do use my CLZ app when I'm at the store. These are ones I got at Cloud9 Comics, my regular shop. This is got to be a Gil Kane cover. A little bit of tarot card action, perhaps. Still the same team inside. Oh, We got switched in, got some Sal Buscema, and that always makes me happy. I guess at this point I want all the Bronze Age Sal Buscema comics if I can. Lots of storytelling in there. You get a lot of comic for your 20 cents. There's a date stamp on the back. November 1974. November 21st, 1974. I wonder if I think hard if I can remember where I was in November of 1974. Another Gil Kane cover on number 21. Kind of looks to me like it was inked maybe by Tom Palmer. I love Tom Palmer's inks, but maybe it's a little messy for Gil Kane. I don't know. And I may be wrong or right whether that's Tom Palmer. There's something about the lines in like the legs and stuff that somehow make me think of Tom Palmer's inking. And this is more Sal Buscema and Steve Gerber. It seems quite promising to me. I'm looking forward to reading these now that I see they're all written by Steve Gerber. I'm going to take number 22. So I got a lot of them all in order from Cloud 9. I don't remember when that was, weeks or months ago. We got the Ghost Rider and Satana. Is Satana Damon's not girlfriend? His sister, Satana, the devil's daughter. Unless it's a different devil. It seems like there were several devils and Satans in the Marvel Universe, and they each had their own different hell. Still more Sal Buscema and Steve Gerber, and Bob McLeod inking now. He developed into a very good inker. I'm not sure if this may be kind of early into his career, but that's a nice double-page spread. Let's see. Letters page. Are they still doing the value stamps? I'm not seeing a letters page. Oh, there's just a single page of letters and no value stamps. So I guess those are done with. One of the letters is from Jack Frost. I'll have to read that. I think once upon a time I did a video where I read some of the letters that interested me from letters pages, and I keep meaning to come back to that and do that again. Here's number 3, again with the Gil Kane. Gil Kane was everywhere. I think Stan Lee specifically noticed that Gil Kane covers sold more comics. So he started having him do more and more and more comics, more and more covers, which is kind of our loss, or I like Gil Kane interiors. I've heard some people say they don't. Okay, here we have, the scripting is now Steve Gerber and Mike Frederick. Makes me wonder if Steve Gerber plotted it and then moved on and Mike Frederick got to do the dialogue, since it was the Marvel method, where they would do the plot and then the artist, the penciler, would do the drawings, and then the writer would come in and do dialogue, they'd letter it, and then they'd ink it. I think it was quite an efficient system as long as the artist didn't mind doing a lot of the heavy lifting of making the plot work page by page. It left a lot of room for creativity on the artist's part, and was for a large part for quite a while why Marvel had more, or one of the reasons why Marvel had so much more energy and spark to it and excitement than the very controlled 60s and 70s DC. Pardon me. Okay, skipping to something completely different. I only got 2 of these. I always look for them when I can get them at good prices, because the prices seem to vary a lot. And I'm only really concerned about readers' copies. But I love getting Harvey comics, particularly Little Dot comics. And I think Little Dot had 3 different ongoing comics. One was called Little Dot's Uncles and Aunts, because she had an endless number of uncles and aunts, each of whom was a character with a different odd trait. You know, whether it's a crazy adventurer, whether he's super rich, super neat, something like that. And then there was also Little Dot in Dotland, and then just plain old Little Dot. So I must have noticed that the prices for these 2 were good in terms of what I'm willing to pay for Little Dot on mycomicshop.com. So I went ahead and got this one. Probably, I've been making a lot of big orders at mycomicshop.com. I start with some specific comic I want, and then I figure to make the postage worthwhile, I start looking around at various things I might want to get. Yeah, so Little Dot in Uncle Abner's Amusement Park. And I also, Little Dot is my most favorite of these. Little Dot and Uncle Jim's Big Haul. She's my favorite, and then maybe Little Lotta is my second favorite. I do like Richie Rich a lot, but somehow he doesn't charm me quite as much as those two gals. And I do like the, not really, I mean, I like Casper okay, but I like Wendy the Little Witch. So I seem to like their female characters. Little Dot in Super Shoes. I assume this is an uncle who's an inventor who gives her some super shoes. I think it's Uncle Brain. I think he was a reoccurring uncle. Yeah, so this is excellent. This is when they were doing the giant size 25-cent comics. I don't know if this is at the same time that Marvel and DC were doing giant size 25-cent comics or not. It doesn't tell me the date on the sticker from mycomicshop.com. It just gives the date of when Little Dot started, I think, 1961, the year of my birth. And so that was, is there a number on the cover? That was number 29, and here is number 20. Really? Oh, so, and it's also king size. So actually an earlier issue. This one's slightly lower grade, according to mycomicshop.com, and it feels warped along the spine. But the cover looks nice, at least as nice as the other one visually. It looks like she's with an uncle who's a secret agent. He kind of looks a bit like Dick Tracy to me. Little Dot and her uncle Espion. Espion? See the spy? Little Lotta in Blunderball. When you got one of these, you would get a lot of the Harvey characters in here. I don't even know. Aunt Mata and Uncle Espion. Richie Rich, Little Lotta, Little Dot. And we often get crossover adventures between Little Dot and Little Lotta. Little Dot in Dot's Good. I wonder if some of these are reprints or if they're all brand new. And for those who don't know, Little Dot is obsessed by dots. So a lot of her adventures are just her, say she has a magic gun that will put dots on things, or she's entranced by something that looks like a dot to her. And for some reason, I find that endlessly amusing. I originally picked up Little Dot for my daughter back around the time I started this channel and the first few years of this channel. I was constantly trying new things, trying to find comics I could read with my daughter. And she enjoyed the little dots. But I became so into it that now I'm a little dot collector, as long as they're not too expensive. And then you may or may not have seen, I did a long video a number of months ago about the different ways I collect the Spirit. And I showed a few of these DC first wave Spirit comics. And I only had a few of them. And doing that video made me feel more the urge to be a completist on some of these Spirit things that I hadn't been too excited about. Because mostly I love when... excuse me, I'm burping from my seltzer water. Mostly I love when it's the Spirit by Will Eisner himself. And there's some exceptions, where you get an Alan Moore doing the Spirit, or Darwin Cook or something. It was less exciting to me to have David Hein and Moritat. And I don't really know anything about David Hein, the writer. I do know Moritat, the artist, and he's a good artist. But it was less exciting to do that. But now I've decided I want to get all of these and sit down and read them all together at some point. So I think I now have most of this DC first wave spirit series. I might be very close to having completed it. This is number 13. And I did read an issue or two, and I thought they were trying to make the spirit a little more like Batman and make the city he lives in a little bit more like Gotham. Moritat has a nice line quality to his artwork, but I don't love the coloring here, particularly where they do all kinds of shading on the skin tone and that type of thing, or even the color choices too much. I know sometimes Moritat does his own coloring, and I haven't liked it when he does his own coloring in other comics. But here the coloring is by Gabe Batista, so I can't blame Moritat. And on some pages, the coloring looks quite nice. Like, I actually like this double-page splash where they spell out the word, the spirit. So anyway, I'm glad that I found this, and I found it nice and cheaply. And speaking of the spirit, I haven't totally completed my kitchen sink comic book size spirit collection. There was a lot of these. What it run to over 70 issues, I believe. So apparently I didn't have issue 54. If I'm collecting them, if just for the fact they have original Will Eisner covers, I'd love to be able to own the original art to one of these covers, actually. Although this is not the very best cover ever, but even this is kind of cool. And every cover tells a story and has a sense of humor. You know, there's the vulture there. I don't know which of the femme fatales of the spirit this is, but they found treasure, and the spirit's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to let you keep that treasure. And apparently they've crashed a dirigible, and there's a sinking ship there. So there's always a lot going on the covers. It almost looks like this is a globe that's crashed behind them, because now I see there's like islands on it. Like, that's intriguing. So, but then on the early on in the spirit run, they were in color, but they turned black and white pretty quickly. So on the inside, you get black and white reproductions of the spirit. And hopefully somewhere in these are ones that I don't have reproduced elsewhere, so it helps fill in little gaps too. But there's a very famous one right there. That, in fact, this image has been used as the cover of several spirit books and comics. Oh, another one that looks very familiar to me. And as you can see here, the great spirit splash pages, one of the things that Will Eisner was so famous for. So, and I have one more of these. So that was 54, and here's 55. I like this 55 cover a lot more, actually, from a visual point of view, although there's less story stuff going on here. Again, we have the spirit coming out of a wrecked ship. So that's a continuing theme. Oh, I just noticed the banners up here that kind of give you the spirit, sand, that would be sans serif, and carrion, marooned. Oh, that's interesting. Is it like an ongoing thing? Because the spirit and sans serif together again, and there's carrion, who I was calling the vulture, but he's carrion. A vulture is a carrion bird, right? So I have to look into this. Maybe there was a continuing story with a shipwreck and treasure and such. Some of the great Will Eisner artwork to go with that story. There they are, marooned. Is my camera focusing okay? The Island. Yeah, very cool. Oh, there's an ad for Xenozoic Tales. Okay, that's interesting. That looks kind of similar. Sorry, I'm now distracted by something. This is what you get on live radio. No, that's not. Oh, well, sorry. Just thought I saw the same story reprinted twice in these, but I was wrong. Okay, last but not least, let me show you a little run of Twisted Tales that I picked up from Pacific Comics mostly. I think every story in here is written by Bruce Jones, and he was a master of sorts, or he was extremely good at short stories, and he did a bunch of different anthology comics with the indie comic book publishers. This one has, of course, a wonderful Richard Corbin cover, and it speaks out to horror and sexiness at the same time. Inside, we do have one story illustrated by Corbin and written by Richard Jones, colors by Steve Oliff, so Corbin did not color himself. Pacific, for those who don't know, was a comic book company that I think was started either at a comic book store or a comic book distributor on the West Coast, of course. That's why it's called Pacific. And I think their first independent comic was creator-owned Jack Kirby comic. If I'm not, I think it was that they started with Captain Victory from Jack Kirby. So this one has Alfredo Alcala artwork in this next story. So it's kind of amazing the high quality they managed to have, because in a sense they were kind of amateurs just starting up a comic book company. But they, by offering rights and having good taste, I guess, in who they offered the publishing to, they got some really good people, including Alien Worlds was also another comic they did with Bruce Jones. So let's see, I got a bunch of these, because I found a few in some cheap bins, and then I wanted the rest of them, and so I turned to mycomicshot.com. So here's Twisted Tales number 4, and I'm going to open that one up too. I don't immediately recognize the cover artist, has a classic pulp look to it. Inside we've got art by John Bolton. Doesn't immediately say who did the cover here though. It's called The Well. And already in this issue 4, I can tell compared to issue 1, he's moved away from some of the stylings of a EC comic with the kind of paneling and everything, and it's more dialogue heavy. Whoa, this is kind of disturbing looking. So there's a John Bolton one. Next up we have art by Don Lomax. I don't know Don Lomax. And art by Bruce Jones himself. I'm assuming Bruce Jones, he was a very good artist, but maybe he could write quicker. He could do more stories than he could draw, so that's why he recruited all these other artists. So that's some Bruce Jones artwork. Here's one number 5 with another Corbin cover. The signature says Corb. And number 6, I can't, again, there's a signature. Oh, this is by Bolton. Wow. Bolton taking on a very pulpy style here. Maybe, I wonder if that other cover was by Bolton. Gonna look inside again because I just can't resist. Another, the lead story is art by John Bolton. I think John Bolton was British, but I'm not totally sure now. I feel like for a while he was kind of a star of, you'd see him in Epic Comics. I don't know if he appeared, and in some of the Marvel black and white comics. I don't know if he appeared in Heavy Metal ever. And then he kind of went away, as far as I know. So cool indie horror following in the footsteps of EC Comics, but perhaps moving on a bit. Art by Mike Hoffman. That looks nice, but I don't remember who Mike Hoffman is. They're advertising here a series called Eerie, The Wildly Plausible Plight of Eerie Smith and Walter Weary. They don't say who the creators. Back then, it wasn't that important to. Oh, here it says Tim Conrad, Steve Ditko, and Will Mignon. Oh, I gotta look for that. Look for that someday. I wonder if Steve Ditko and Tim Conrad are working together. Probably not. Probably doing separate stories. And here's one with art by Miz Michiluzzi. And I don't know if that is Michelini it seems almost like a variation on his name. this has a very different vibe to it with lots of text in captions. And then we've got Twisted Tales number 7. Very disturbing cover. Back then, your indie comics like this, you paid a premium. I'm not, this came out originally, well, the series started in 82. I'm guessing your average Marvel comic at that time was 75 cents, maybe 60, 75 cents. But you would pay $1.50 for something like this. And it seemed well worth it. I don't ever remember mentally complaining about the price of comics like this. But now indie comics like at Image and Boom often have more pages for the same price or don't even cost as much as some of the Marvel and DC comics. Art by William Ray. I have not heard of him. It looks nice. Art by Libatori. Huh. So maybe as the later issues, they're getting less name artists, or at least not name artists to me. Maybe they were up-and-comers at the time. This art looks familiar. Art by Ian Aiken and Brian Garvey. Those were the inkers on some of those ROM issues that I was showing in my last haul video. Interesting. That looks really nice. Kind of somewhere between Frazetta and Mike Plug or something. Oh, and here's an ad for another comic, Sun Runners, by Patrick Broderick and Roger McKenzie. They were trying to put the artists first, which seems maybe the right way to do credits in comics. Artist first, writer second. Here is Twisted Tales number 8. And Twisted Tales number 9. I don't know if this was the last of the Pacific Comics version. Eventually, I think Pacific Comics went under. Bruce Jones and Tom Enriquez. That looks good, but I don't know who Tom Enriquez is. And let's see. Pardon me. Bill Ray again. Some of these do still have that look of a EC comic, and some don't. Oh, here's something different. Written by Jan Sternard. I never know how to say his name. And art by Val Mayrick. Jan Sternard, I mostly know as someone who wrote with Corbin, with Richard Corbin. And it's always kind of cool to come across some Val Mayrick art. You never know when he'll pop up. And some Mike Hoffman art. So I don't know if this was the last issue of Twisted Tales from Pacific, but later in 1988, Eclipse brought out Twisted Tales, and this is Twisted Tales issue number 1 with a Dave Stevens cover that's signed 86, but maybe it was had been sitting around for a while. So Pacific was gone, and Eclipse was still going, at least for a while. They're charging $3.95 for this, but it's kind of square bound, and it's on very thick paper, and it has a slightly less slick package, and it contains 3 stories, all written by Bruce Jones, but not drawn by people I'd heard of before. Rick Stassi, Scott Saavedra, and Henry Mayo. And it's on a rougher, more matte paper, I guess you'd say. Yeah, so it doesn't have quite as the slick professional look. It's not amateurish or anything, but it doesn't quite seem to be at the level of the Pacific comics. And I don't know if they only managed one issue from Eclipse or if they did more Twisted Tales. Eventually Marvel snapped up Bruce Jones. I don't know if he maybe did some work at DC too, but he did some Conan work, and he did some great work with the Hulk and probably some other stuff at Marvel. Haven't heard from him too recently, though. Oh, and of course, in the early 80s for Marvel, he did that awesome Kazar run, Kazar the Savage. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. I still have tons of backlog of stuff I want to haul that I've been picking up all during this crazy COVID era. So I hope to get to do some more. Thanks for making it to the end of the video with me, and I hope you're having a great week of playing with your comics. Talk to you later.